feel like it might be nice to start, everyone. It's a beautiful Friday up here. Um, just had a lovely walk with my dogs in the woods and just feel so grateful to live here in this community, and just wanted to say that to all of you. It's beautiful to see your faces. Amazing to see our artists. I don't know, like the first live artists working in America together, it seems to me. So we'll get into that. Everybody, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Carol Dunn. I'm the producing artistic director of Northern Stage. Welcome to TNT, Tiny Necessary Theater. Great title. We came up with about 6 months ago because we knew that doing theater was going to be a huge challenge, and we wanted to focus on what was necessary to connect to you all, right, during this time. We miss you. The idea behind TNT was to produce plays that we knew we could do through filming really well, that also, some of which might be monologues, so maybe we could do them live with the union's permission. And Irene Green, as many of you know, has worked for months and months to get permission. So right now, Dutch Masters, we start filming next week. That is going to be a beautifully filmed piece, but quite different than I think things that you've seen online, because our amazing actors, John and Nuri, who you'll meet later, are going to be performing the play in the Brett Center for the Arts as we film, and our directors in Houston. So we are on the cutting edge, I think, of theater right now. Obviously, I think you've all heard about It's Fine, I'm Fine being performed live. Our next TNT, The Naked Librarian, Harmfulness of Tobacco, we are not sure yet. And that is the kind of beautiful thing that the union keeps putting us through. We don't know if it's live or live and filmed, okay? So just bear with us as we bear with the changing tides. This play, Dutch Masters, was brought to me by Maggie Burrows, one of our resident directors, 2 years ago. I read it and I couldn't put it down. We tried to program the play, and I can't remember why we couldn't do it about a year ago. These things happen, rights or scheduling. And then we programmed the play for this season. And we were so excited to bring it to you because we had done some readings of this play for some of our classes, and our audiences were incredibly moved and kept on the edge of their seat by this play. That is my dog eating my smoothie that spilled.
Oh my gosh, good dog.
If you hear strange sounds coming from my home, okay, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on in the world, and then I will pass this over to Eric Love. Anti-racist work is at the very top of all of our work at Northern Stage. I will say equity and diversity was more at the top of our work over the past years. But since the protests, since these horrific murders have been happening in our country, the lead team at Northern Stage has put at the very top of our work anti-racism. We started with all of you with our 500 plus person book club working on white fragility, and then the later regrouping for working on anti-racist work on white fragility. Dutch Masters is revelatory, I think. I think it will be revelatory to you. Questions of race, questions of family, and questions of what white people expect when perhaps they see someone Black in a certain situation. And I know our company is treating this very sensitively. I want to honor Rachel and Nuri as our artists of color here now, and thank you for, you know, signing on to this project at this time in this crazy way. And we're just grateful to you for your courage, really, in dealing with this piece right now in this way. So when we came to pivoting, we decided online as a film was going to be best, because it really needs a sense of place. New York subway will tell you, you'll hear a lot more about that. And we're going to have a spot on where microaggressions is going to be discussed with our community, meaning I've learned a lot from bringing artists of color to a predominantly white area. And a lot of our artists of color have shared with us what happens when you go into a restaurant and some of our audiences say, "What are you doing here?" Right? You must be an actor, right? Because we live in, so I thought it would be a beautiful community conversation coming up with Spot On, really talking about what it means to be an artist of color in White River Junction and how we can all support better. Okay, I want to turn over to Eric Love, who is in charge today, is producing this play for Northern Stage. And Eric, take it away.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here with you all. And as we go, basically the next half an hour, we're gonna have a conversation with Rachel and Nuri and John and Carol. As ideas pop into your head, please feel free to just jump on in here. And then we're gonna open it up for 20 minutes of questions from you. So I wanna start by introducing the team. And I was thinking about questions I wanted to ask them, and I realized that I was like, okay, what am I gonna ask the director, and then what do I wanna ask the actors? But actually, a lot of the questions apply to all those artists. And so I'm gonna introduce them all at once so they can each answer questions and participate in a more of a conversation. So Rachel Hemphill Dixon is the director of Dutch Masters. She's also the Bold Artistic Associate for the Ensemble Theater in Houston, Texas, which is one of our Bold sister theaters that Carol brought that group of theaters together 3 years ago. She is a director and an actor and an educator, and she's also working with me to run a boot camp program to mentor 2 juniors to get into college programs out of the ensemble theater, and has joined our board of directors. So we have a lot of Rachel in our life, and we love every minute, and we thank you. Nuri Hazard, we had a great audition process of sending out this like crazy project into the world and people being like, oh, we're casting. We didn't know people are casting, and receiving video auditions. And Nuri is just terrific. He's playing the character of Eric. He is a Brooklyn-based actor, writer, and master of ceremonies. And he graduated from my home state, University of North Carolina School of the Arts. Yes, in 2013 with a VFA in acting. And he has since then been able to make a big impact as an actor and lyricist, most notably with the release of his latest EP, Seein' Signs, and his role as Arius in American Milkshake, which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, which I'm so excited about. I want to see that. Mr. Hazard is excited about opportunities to ignite important dialogue. Well, here we are. Inspire change, empower the oppressed, heal, and liberate spirits. We're so grateful you're with us. John Croft is playing the actor of Steve. Hi, John. He is a New York-based actor, a graduate of the esteemed Juilliard School. And since then, he's performed in a number of world-class theaters, including Manhattan Theater Club, Pioneer Theater Company, the Bay Street Theater, and Williamstown Theater Festival, to name a few. And he has also appeared on television in such series as Blue Bloods and Red Oaks, and as well as in other independent and short films. And also one of my favorite details is that he has worked as a narrator for a number of audiobooks, because I love audiobooks, and you can find him at recordedbooks.com and audible.com. Thank you so much for joining us, John. So I'm gonna throw out a question, and you guys can, if you were inspired, you can join in, or you can say, oh, I'll pass on this. But the first one is big picture. What inspires you about this play? When you read it for the first time, why did you say, this play should happen at this time? And Rachel, I'm gonna pitch that to you to begin with.
Sure. So the first 30 pages, I didn't say why this play. I said, why this play?
Exactly.
It took getting through to the end of it and saying, okay, this play. So what is inspiring in that it has a very humanistic story. On the surface, it's something you think you know. And as you experience the piece, it moves you to a space that no matter who you are, you have a relationship to the human qualities that these 2 characters bring, these 2 actors will bring to life in the form of these 2 characters. So you may think, I don't know these folks. Like I heard Carol say, you know, what does it look like when you have a Black guy with a gun? What does that mean? What kind of messages does it automatically trigger for each of us? But beyond that, and beyond, you know, white kiddo with privilege, and we've come to a space with this piece that's about feelings that we all can identify with. And so that was what inspired me. And then the fact that it is so contemporary, so current, so relevant today with the Black Lives Matter movement. Not that any of that is new. And this piece was written early 2000s, so it still resonates 20 years later. And it's speaking to, you know, those isms, classism, racism, all of those that we sexism's in there too, that we still see. And so it makes it'll spark conversation. That's something that was interesting to me as well. Like you'll want to sit down and go, let's talk about that. Yeah. So those are the reasons that I was inspired and drawn to the piece. And I thought, this is going to be super hard. I'm not sure I can do it. And then I said, that's why I have to do it. Like, I don't know how to manage two men but then I'm a human and I understand this story. So I said, okay, that's a great challenge for me then too, as well. So.
Oh man, amazing. John and Mary, had you guys known the show before this, or you got a script from your agent, and like, what is your experience with the show, and were you excited about that? Yeah, John.
I can answer that question. I also just want to ask, because I just want to be super careful. We want to be conscious about spoilers, correct?
Yes, no spoilers. So, John, we can say, "Oh, sit on the edge of your seat, but don't tell anything."
Yes, no, and I'm very careful to say that because the show goes to some very exciting and unexpected places, and I was lucky enough to see the world premiere of it downtown in New York in like a 99-seat theater because one of my very close friends. Who actually like we work in a wine shop in Brooklyn together. It's like our side gigs, and at the play I did at Manhattan Theater Club, he was my understudy, and then I watched him originate this part, and I was so excited by the production. It was so like it just vibrated so much, and it was so exciting. All I thought when the lights went down were, I would kill to play this part. I would kill to do this play. So I feel so lucky that not only am I getting to work and do what I love during the pandemic, but that I'm also getting to do a project that is a dream of, you know, the past year or two that this play has been in my consciousness. But so yeah, those are the reasons why I love to do the play. But aside from that, what excited me about the play is that I'm from New York City. I grew up with privilege. There's a lot of my life that's in this character. There's really only a few steps removed in certain cases. And so it resonated really deeply with me and with my experience and with what I know has been the experience of a lot of people I grew up with. And the other thing that I thought was so exciting about it is that in the conversation about Black Lives Matter and racial equality in this country as it is right now, I think there's a really interesting thing that's starting to happen where, much like with sexism, how men are being asked more to examine how misogyny hurts men and that they are also oppressed by it. Similarly, I think that a lot of the conversations I've been having recently with friends about Black Lives Matter is white people asking themselves, what does it mean to be white? That we keep having the conversation, but that we start to look at ourselves and that we start to call out where being white has its advantages and that we don't even see because that's the nature of how it operates. And I think this play gets at that in a very interesting and unexpected way.
Wow, that's so cool. I love that you've had such a relationship with the piece 2 years going now. And Nuri, how did you know the piece beforehand, and what was your impression when you first encountered it?
I actually had not known about the piece before I auditioned to it or auditioned for it. Me and John actually have the same agents, and the good man David Cash over at Nicolosi. He was very excited when it came across his desk, and he was sure to impress upon me the importance and like the revolutionary nature of doing theater in this time. And so that, but in and of itself, was exciting. Like, whoa, we're doing actual theater in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of this just really intense climate, socioeconomically, sociopolitically, all these different elements. But then when I read the script, like I said, I hadn't known about it before, but I had been aware of something that, of a play that, not that it's based on, but that it kind of tilts its hat to, called The Dutchman by Amiri Baraka. So I was aware of that piece. And so I went into Dutch Masters thinking, oh, I know what's going to happen. I know what this is. And similarly to Rachel, and I'm sure anyone else who will experience the piece, it definitely does a very interesting misdirection. It definitely has one thinking in one direction and sends them in a direction that is very human and is based in just people understanding people. I was excited to do the piece on the first layer. I was excited because I wanted challenge. Just like Rachel, I saw this as an opportunity to get down and dirty, like how I remember doing in training, like in school and other places like that. Just bare bones, two people in a room. You got the words, you got the set, you're just going at it. Just, is it there? Like, did you do the work? Like, did you bring yourself to it? And then that was the other element that had me excited about it. As I read through it, I saw so much of myself in it, just like John said. I knew that I had something real, authentic, deep, something invaluable to offer to this rendition of the storytelling. And ultimately, I feel like my gift has purpose, and I feel like this was an opportunity, or this is an opportunity, to speak up for people like myself, and people like Eric, and to give people an opportunity to see the depth and the complexity and the humanness, if you will, of people like myself, especially because oftentimes we don't get to express those things. We don't get to express the complexity and the multidimensionality of our existence. And I feel like art, theater, hip hop, most of my mediums are expressly about that, speaking up for the people who can't speak, who don't get a chance to speak up for themselves oftentimes.
That is beautiful. Oh my gosh, so beautifully said. I want to pick up on what you said about like the opportunity to do theater in any form at this time, and how almost it's a revolutionary act at the moment because it's so rare and so difficult. We have to change systems that we took for granted forever in order to make this work. And this team has been so amazing because they've been so flexible and saying yes and figuring it out. So one of the things that Carol and I and the team have talked a lot about, though, is how theater is different than film and TV. And as we bring the medium of theater into a digital space, how to preserve that core that makes theater not film and TV. And so, Rachel, why don't you start with this one? You know, how, in putting this into a digital format, have you worked on protecting the core of what makes theater theater?
Well, I think the two things that make theater theater is this: there's always a story. There's a journey to take for those who are working on it, those who are viewing it, those who've selected it. There's always a story, and that you're in the room breathing together. So I think those are the two things that make theater just much more amazing than the other. medium you're talking about. So I want to applaud Northern Stage for forging ahead and making it happen. And the turn of the corner for me was when you said they could be in the same room by the time we're filming, because them breathing together, we're finding like on Zoom, like someone mentioned last night, it's an 8-second delay. I can hear you through the floor saying your line, but it doesn't come out of my computer for 8 seconds later. So breathing together, quite a challenge. And it's harder for me to sense where they are and how they're feeling. So I have to do a lot more with visual cues than I do with oral cues like I can do when I'm in the room. So we focused a lot on the story and trusting that the story will resonate. Spend a lot more time sitting talking about the story than we probably would have if we were face to face. Waiting on the days. So I need them to get off this call and check to see if they can be in the room together starting today because they've quarantined and their test came back negative, so that they can be in the room together. I'm just so grateful and excited that the team is, the Northern Stage team, like Eric said, is very present, very willing, very flexible, and going to make it work. So yeah, that's how it's been, and it's challenging. You know, I'm directing right on Zoom, and they're in their own Zoom worlds. So they set up the little stage in their apartments, and then I, you know, try to keep up with what they're doing. And there are moments, because they are amazing, that I forget, oh, you're not in the same room, because they're looking like they're in the same room. So it's been wonderful because they're willing, everybody's willing to play. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And for our actors, Nuri, what's it like to be on Zoom? I mean, it must be sometimes an out-of-body experience. What are the major challenges, and are there any unexpected benefits? Any like, ooh, silver lining, this works better on Zoom?
Definitely.
You want to go, Nuri?
Sure. Once again, part of the thing that attracted me to this opportunity was the challenge of it at all. And what I've learned in a real way is something similar to what I've noticed in martial arts. It's when you take one sense away, when you take one ability away, one way of doing things, that even when it's effective, the other senses, the other abilities strengthen to make up for that. And what I have seen is what, like you said earlier, it was so funny. You were like, some things that we take for granted in our process. Like I take for granted being able to go into the theater with the ghost light and just warm up and let my voice boom, and like how much that actually affects me and like sets me in the right direction. I take for granted being able to just sit next to my castmate and just like talk. Like just between different things, just talk and relate and build that relationship outside of the characters. I take for granted being able to walk around the space with people there or without people there and just go through my lines, walk through my blocking. But what it has done is it's given me other skill sets to prioritize and to make more strong. Whereas in normal situations, I wouldn't even have to do that. I wouldn't even take the opportunity to do that because I didn't have to. For example, like the memorization, like I'm used to approaching memorization in a very specific way. And it always works out for me in that way. And, you know, I'm just used to doing it that way. I've been doing it that way since 2006. Okay, cool. But now it's 2020 and I'm doing Dutch Masters here with, you know, Northern Stage, and I have to learn other ways to do it. And just getting an opportunity to prioritize things like that, finding ways to prioritize connecting with my scene partner, with my castmate, without being able to touch him or breathe with him, or, you know, like, you know, they say communication is 75% nonverbal. But that other 25% is very important too, you know? And just really focusing on that 25% and what that means, and how to do that without over intellectualizing it as well. Because as you can literally see, it can turn into a thing where we're just talking heads in a very literal way. And so figuring out a way to bring myself fully, like I'm a very passionate person naturally. I'm a very exuberant person naturally. And being able to communicate that and get that across in this process through this has been unique, but rewarding.
I love that. And what's fun is just feeling your passion and energy coming to the Zoom screen. Like we feel it. Like we can, it's not just talking heads. There's so much information and energy that's communicated through the screen. And I love that. John, how about you? Any surprises or unexpected challenges?
Lots of unexpected challenges. I don't know that I can say that there's any like unexpected benefits from rehearsing on Zoom. It really feels like I've been playing basketball my whole life, and now it's like, okay, now you're gonna play basketball, but you're gonna wear an eye patch. The ball is 20 pounds heavier, and you can only use your left arm. So I would say
saying very well. If all those variables are true in your mind, you're doing a fabulous job.
It's what it feels like, but I'll agree in the sense that like having to roll with the punches and do that definitely I feel like it's a challenge, and it's an exciting challenge because I feel like I'm thinking about acting differently, and I feel like I'm thinking about storytelling differently, and I feel like it's ultimately it's when you have to adapt to handicaps, it makes you stronger. So I definitely feel like that's the case, and I think while there may not be any unexpected benefits of rehearsing theater over Zoom, I am excited for the next, today is our last day of rehearsing through Zoom, and then tomorrow we're going to be in the theater together, and then we're going to be filming this over the next couple days. And even though we're doing theater and we're preserving we're trying to preserve the energy and the magic of theater, I'm excited to see I think there will be a lot of unexpected joys and things that will help lift the story with the use of putting this on camera. I think we'll be able to grab there'll be a certain other level of intimacy with certain shots, with certain ways that we'll be able to tell the story, probably in that'll be more in post-production. But I think I'm curious to see what ways the filming of it will tell the story in ways that theater can't, but also while still preserving, hopefully, things like breath and urgency and a sense of community as much as possible.
Oh, I love that. So that actually brings us, yes, you guys are about to come out of quarantine pending negative test results, which we can't wait for. We are so excited. And now you're going to be able to be together in the theater space to film this. Rachel, tell us a little bit about the world of the play that you've created in the theater space, knowing that with there's a lot of limitations on the choices that can be made, but what choices did you make and why? What are we going to experience in the space?
Sure. So my sadness is because they'll be in the theater together and I am still going to be on Zoom. So that makes me really sad, but it's great. Glad to be here. Well, my intention conceptually, let's start over. My intention is that you watching the piece will still see theater. So even though it's being filmed, I have asked that it's very clear we're in the theater, but it moves along in a way that you won't get to experience because you're not in the room, right? It'll move along. We're all used to looking at Zoom and looking at movies at this point, right? Or looking at the screen. So to honor that space, but to have the fact that we're doing theater be at the forefront, because we miss theater and we love theater and we want the viewers to experience theater that has been filmed, but it's better film quality than the film that's from the back row and it captures the stage and never moves, right? We're going to be a little bit more intricate than that. Conceptually, my hope is that you will see how these two entities, we've got black and white, or we've got one world and another, and they come together with a through line that we see throughout the elements of the piece. So in perhaps the costuming, there's some commonality, but they also have divergent, or you can see how their lives have crossed a bit. Eric has taken something from Steve's world and Steve has taken something from Eric's world. So they've got their own, but then there's a through line in the middle that they meet with. And there's also the idea of push and pull, right? No conflict exists from one body alone, right? The Black Lives Matter movement is not because of one body alone. All the folks involved have some contribution, and that push and pull and finding that balance is something that I'm hoping to communicate in the piece, both through the designs that you hear that have kind of a fugue that happens, and we settle on one and we settle on the other, and the set design, you know, part of what's working there is that, like I said, you will be able to tell we're in the theater. I'm thinking if it's how I see it and how I've seen the test takes happen. But you'll get the sense of fluidity that happens like you would see in film, right? You can see them walk from one area to the other, but it's in the theater with the film overlay, if you will. So again, it's that push and pull that's happening. So Eric, am I answering your question? Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that is the hope, that you will feel like you are watching theater, but you'll be visually, it'll have enough visual appeal, since you can't breathe with us, that it'll maintain everyone's interest throughout, which it's going to do. Just the words on the page do that. The two actors alone, as you can see, do that. So yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch in its final form.
And I can speak for the whole Northern Stage team, how excited we are for this vision, because there were lots of options. Like, we could start trying to shoot outside, or we could just film it on Zoom and keep the limitations of this frame. But we felt this way is going to honor the theater that you want to preserve, but give us this intimate film window into the theater space. John and Nuri, you have a big challenge coming up, because you both have done lots of film work, but as Nuri said, this is like it's a two-hander. It's almost a little over an hour, maybe a little longer than that. Really hard, difficult, long-form scenes. It's like going back to the basics in a really extreme way. So what are you looking forward to? What are you worried about? Like, you got a fun week ahead. What are you thinking about?
Go ahead, John.
I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of theater, and I always started in theater, and like my roots as an actor is like doing Shakespeare and just really, you know, theater. I'm much less experienced in on camera, but I've been studying in my own time for the past 2 years. I've been trying to learn a lot more film and TV, like acting technique. I think I was a little what's the word that will be fair to myself? I was maybe a little snobbish when I graduated from school, having gotten a really solid theater training from Juilliard. They didn't do, you know, it's a classical theater training. And I think I thought in my mind, like, oh, theater is harder than film. If you can do theater, you can do film. And it's just that easy. You just do what you do on theater, but you make it smaller. Not at all the case. It took me a couple of years of like hard knocks and being in auditions and learning, like, oh no, it's just a totally different sport. You use a lot of the same muscles, but it's a different sport. And so I've been really trying to educate myself in the past couple of years about that. But this is so interesting because I think I'm going to feel a bit of a push and pull between the two different set of techniques of like, oh, well, we want it to be theater. We want it to read like theater, but also it's going to be through a camera. So I'm anxious isn't the right word. I'm curious and excited to see what that is going to be like, what the reality of that is going to be like.
You captured that perfectly. It's like the push and pull between theatrical and film technique. And It sounds like that'll be something you and Carol and Rachel and Nuri negotiate moment to moment, scene by scene.
Yeah, and also to be fair, like, I love what you were just saying about, and I'm so glad you guys didn't. I'm so glad we are doing this in a theater, and that it's known that this is still theater, even though we're putting it on film, because, you know, you guys are a theater company, and you know, it's not a film production company. And what you do as theater makers is you provide community, and unfortunately we can't have that community right now because of this terrible virus. But it's still like, I don't know, I feel warmed that even though this is my first time coming to this community, that it's like, we're going to be in your house, and we're going to be like, you're going to be like, look, the house is still here. This still exists. We're still doing what we're doing. We're just trying to do it the way that we can. So it gives me like a lot of heart to be helping in that.
Maybe we should add the effect to the show that pre-show audience who come into Zoom can feel like they're sitting in one of the actual seats. I think there's an effect that you can do that too. That could be fun.
I like that. And Nuri, you were doing a lot of applauding for John during his scene. It sounds like you resonate with this.
Yeah, there's a phrase that I learned in school where if somebody's saying something that you agree with, you just say, "Friend speaks my mind." And so that's how I feel. I think, so like John just said, I came out of North Carolina School of the Arts with my BFA, and I am a trained actor. And of course, if I can do stage, I can do film as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was definitely that preconceived confidence. And there's a lot of reality to that. And then you get into the NBC office and you're auditioning for, you know, some role, and the one, whoever is auditioning you, sitting behind her desk and her assistant's right there, and you realize that the expectation is the same for you to tell the story, but the medium is completely different. And so what I'm excited about engaging with is the raw elements, the core elements of storytelling. The things that the middle of the Venn diagram between theater and film, the elements of acting that serve you no matter what, your imagination, talking and listening.
Yeah.
Understanding what the story actually is and investing yourself into it, like the core elements. And that's really going to be my touchstone as I go through this process. That's really where, because I do sometimes in the midst of this, I must admit, in my humanness, I get frustrated and I get kind of in my head sometimes, because there are so many elements and moving pieces that sometimes where I would like for it to flow, it cannot, because of the internet connection, or I just can't be seen because the frame of the camera isn't wide enough, or just very basic things. But the touchstone that I always come back to and that grounds me, really the essence of my performance I'm crafting, is in those basic raw elements that serve me no matter what. And also it gives me a masterclass opportunity to really pay attention to the specificity of how you tell stories, like exactly what, like just being conscious. I feel like that's what the master artist of any medium understands. They know what their message is, they know what the story is, and they know who they're giving the message to, and they know the conduit on which that message is being translated. And so with all of those things being said, the master artist is able to tweak each of those three elements specifically to get the story told most effectively. You know, it's like my dad always says this thing. He's like, son, you know, impact and intent, they got to match up. I mean, I know you think you're saying one thing, but the impact is another, you know. And for a long time, I used to be like, Dad, please be quiet. But in an artistic way, I definitely understand what he's been trying to get me to see for a long time. Now it's like, what my intent is as an artist, what my intent is with my artistic voice, as a master, as I move towards mastery in my journey, it will serve me to learn best how to tweak it and align those things.
You guys, all three of you are so eloquent, and you've actually made me even more excited to see this show than I already am, which is impossible.
Yeah, Eric, I want to jump in and just say that the three of you are amazing, and I will just tell everyone, and you all, many of you have been with us week after week with Playdate. You know, your skeleton crew of Northern Stage have had a rough 6 months, an amazing 6 months, but just sitting here and feeling the passion of theater again from the three of you specifically is such a gift. So I just want to say that. Eric, you go on. Such a
Oh,
gift.
no, that's how it,
Thank you, three. Thank you. I'm so happy we're here.
Thank you
friend
for having
speaks
us.
my mind.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here if Northern Stage didn't forge ahead. So
Right.
I'm grateful. I'm
Right.
And I
so
Thank you.
grateful.
still tearing up. I mean, I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up. So thank you.
Sincerely, thank you for having us.
Speaking of friends, I want to open it up to all of our friends here with us in this Zoom community to ask any questions you have for Rachel, John, or Nuri. And you can raise your normal hand or your digital hand. Yes, Fred.
I'm curious to know about the connection to the audience. How that's the missing piece, isn't it? And what do you have some tricks on how you're going to replace that missing audience, or communicate or feed off that audience?
You know, when doing theater, that is always, or it is always one of my most favorite elements, because the audience's breathing is just as much of an element as our breathing as characters. I think that in this process, I have, like I was saying earlier, I have decided that my touchstone will be John, Steve. That is my audience. That is who I'm communicating with. That's who I'm trying to get my story across to. And it is different. That's one of those things that to be honest, Fred, like, y'all are irreplaceable. I can't replace y'all. Like, as I go through this process, I think to try to replace all of you guys and gals is futile, and it doesn't really serve me. And honestly, and I think it may be even distracting, and it may do me more of a disservice than a service. That's one thing. I can't wait till this virus has subsided so that I can get back to you, Fred, and all of the other friends of the theater, because you are irreplaceable. But or not but, and John/Steve is a equally worthy and equally formidable audience in this process. And just knowing that you all will be watching it from wherever you watch it gives me the determination that, and the excitement that, you know, having you actually in the audience would have done. You know, just knowing that this story still matter. We're not doing it in some like chasm or some void, you know, never to be truly fully experienced. You know, like, I know that you guys are going to experience it, and because of that, I'm excited to give my best. You know, like, it is disappointing that you're not going to be there, but
Well, my hope is that Eric and Fred, my hope is that the actors approach this like theater, forget the cameras, do the piece. It's that last dress rehearsal before there's an audience. And we put our 110 in for that last dress rehearsal before there's an audience. And this piece lends itself to focusing so narrowly on the world you are in. Like, some pieces you need the bigger, like I need to open up my circles of attention, right, to the third layer. But this piece, if they go too far past the first circle of attention, it will die. It will die. And so my hope is that you will feel, Fred, that intensity between them, and then in editing, they'll have those few moments of camera shots right there up on their faces where you may see and feel the breath with them. But yeah, you're, like Nuri said, you're irreplaceable. But
I was gonna say the same thing, Rachel. That the audience is always another character in the company, like, always. And I had a teacher who always said, you don't know what the show is until you have an audience, really. Like, you can rehearse for years rather than weeks, and you don't know what the show is until it's in front of people, because they bring something to it that you can't possibly plan or account for. But I think what you said, Rachel, is kind of what I've been thinking in my mind, which is that in a way, I hope that it feels like you're getting to be a fly on the wall for what would be our final dress rehearsal. That part of the process where we've done everything we can do short of putting it every night into the laboratory of a different group of people, and that you get to be a part of our work in that way, even though we can't all be part of the experience together.
And I will say also, there will be a uniqueness for me, at least, in that I feel like this is like you're getting raw honey as opposed to the cooked honey, because that audience member or that extra character that is the audience they do have an effect on theater. And so it's like, yeah, you're going to get the honey, but this is like a raw
honey.
Yeah, like a raw, untampered with, like we just caught the fish and just threw it on the fire. Like you just throw some salt on it and you just eat it. Like it's just gonna be, it just is what it is. So there will be a unique element to it this time that I'm excited about, and from a very theater-based place.
I love that.
Raw honey. I love it.
Susan, we're ready for you.
Yeah, but I've already got a ticket. Are you going to be filming while there is a live audience? It's not going to be a full theater, but there is going to be a live audience, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I know that filming.
I'll let Carol take.
Yeah, Susan, so sorry. This play is not being performed live. This is purely on film. It's fine. I'm fine. There's 4 pieces in TNT. Yes. So thank you so much. I'm so glad you nodded, because I thought, oh man, I love Eric Levy goes, Carol gets to answer this one. So no, this is purely on film. And this was the first piece. And we thought Dutch Masters is going to be really gorgeous this way. Then the next one is live and it's one person. So some of the health things that we had to deal with, we could then have the time to start with one person. And so that's what's happening, Susan. So you'll be coming to the theater for It's Fine, I'm Fine. We don't know what's going on with Naked Librarian, Harmfulness of Tobacco yet. And Portraits of the Pandemic is a radio play. So we're really doing this hybrid. But I do want to reaffirm, I do not know of a theater company that has actually brought actors to the theater to film a play yet. I think we're the first in that too. I think I could, just believe me because it sounds good, but I think so.
Yes, Robert.
This play sounds like it's going to create, it's going to open some doors like White Fragility and some of the other books we've been reading lately. How is there going to be a platform for expanding on the shift we white folks hope we have in appreciating and understanding all this crap about slavery and everything else that's going on? Let's face it, folks, we are all Black in our roots. We came from Africa as a human being. And so where are we going to get a chance to bounce this stuff around to help each other grow?
Great, Bob. And actually, Just Chase, I'll pull you in here. There's several places, but it's so interesting. After we did White Fragility, so many people wanted to continue bouncing that we did a follow-up about 2 weeks later. So what I'm seeing right now from you is we're going to need more. So we started today with this. We have a talk. Just Chase, when are the talkbacks? We have live talkbacks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we're going to have two conversation opportunities, and they may not be on exactly this topic, but we will have sort of a live opening night artist talk back on October 9th, right after the show is released. And then on Sunday, October 11th, we are currently planning, we think of this as, it's part of our Spot On series, which gives context to our main stage plays, but we think of this as really an extension of the White Fragility conversations. And we really did want to focus in the idea of microaggressions and on how we can make the Upper Valley a more welcoming place to folks who are coming here to make work, and to any people of color who find themselves in the Upper Valley. So it will focus on that topic in particular, but we hope that there will be, we've talked about maybe a series of 3 workshops coming up this season so that we can continue exploring these topics as a community. But that's sort of where we are right now in our planning. So the October 9th and 11th are going to be those 2 events, and you'll see more information about them.
Yeah. And also around New Works now, we know some of the projects that are going to be in that, and we're focusing a lot on anti-racism at that time in January too. But for us, it's, every month or every 2 months, we'll be revisiting with audiences opportunities to workshop together and anti-racist strategies as a community.
So we have about 7 more minutes, and who else has a question for the artistic team? Yes, James.
Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Great. I don't have a question. I have
Okay, you're breaking up a little bit, James. Do you want to write your question in the chat?
That's going to be difficult. It's not a question, it's a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your intelligence. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for being so articulate. This could not be more exciting. I think you all together through Northern Stage are taking us to a new level. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
I'll take that to heart.
It's an honor to be with you, our community. Can I just share something? And you guys, I love this. It was Eric Love who froze, not Jim Adler. Look at Eric, he's frozen. Zoom. We've been doing some interviews for people, maybe coming to work with us in the future. And somebody asked me why I love working at Northern Stage. And it's because of our community, the hungriest, most supportive, up for any journey. We love our audiences. Just want to say that. Okay, poor Eric Love is gone. Oh, Anne Payton, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. For
Please.
Nikki and John, how is the story of this play, the heart of this play, how is it changing you?
So, in my experience, I have done a lot of repression, a lot of denial, a lot of drudging through, a lot of coping with, a lot of making do. And I remember being in high school, I went to arts high school, and I didn't really have the emotional intelligence, or I couldn't really explain it. But in retrospect, I liked doing theater because things I felt like were too dangerous to do, like love someone fully, express myself directly, be afraid, be in charge, just all these different opportunities to be different things I was not able to do in my life outside of theater. And one of the most gratifying, empowering things about being Eric is how direct he is and how he says what's real to him. And if he was to cry, if he needed to cry, he would cry. If he needed to say, I don't like that doesn't feel good, stop doing it, he will say it directly. If he needs something, he will go get it and ask for it fervently, unabashedly. It definitely has taught me, and very specifically, just wanting and directly asking for companionship sometimes, just in real life or in my life outside of it. It's not always like that. So I appreciate the opportunity to live in that and get some practice in being that way. I definitely, outside of all of the acting, I didn't know this when I read the script for the first time. Outside of all the acting, all of that, just as a human being, as Nuri, I'm glad that you addressed me, Nuri, like as Nuri. I'm going to take that with me for sure. Like, yeah.
For me, I think it's kind of what I was referring to earlier in terms of just continuing to examine my relationship to being white, what it means to me to be white, and where I haven't before for so long, because I was so inspired to hear that you guys have read White Fragility, and that you're discussing, it seems like you're discussing it as a community and that it's in conversation with your theater. I think that's so incredible. Because I've read it too, and I think it's a really powerful book in that, I'm just trying to look at this play and continue to kind of approach that idea, and to try not to assume that just because I'm educated and I'm that I am objective, and that I haven't also, that my perspective hasn't also been informed in ways that I can't even fathom, that I didn't choose about how I see the world and about what the world looks like to me, and that the world that I came up in was always taken as the norm, as opposed to a particular system that is designed in a certain way to, operate and protect certain people so that they don't have to worry about other, and just kind of like poking holes in that, and seeing, because I think that's a lot of what this play, from my perspective, that's a lot of what this play speaks to, is just how many things you don't even notice, that you don't even think about, because you don't have to. You never did. Why would you? But it is those things that you're not seeing. That's somebody else's reality. That's somebody else's life. And in a city like New York City, that's your neighbor's life, and you might have no idea about it. So I think that's, to me, it's just like I'm trying to do that work in the play, and I'm trying to do that work in my life. So it's definitely having an effect.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Eric Love, his internet keeps crashing. So he has, I don't know, Eric, if you can hear us, but we're so grateful for the work that you did today. Rachel, is there just last thing? And I actually wanted to point us to the chat. Ann Payton says, white privilege, the power to ask for what you want. And Nuri's experimenting with that power to ask. Powerful. Thank you. So that was beautiful. Rachel, anything changing you with this play? And then we'll wrap up with that.
Sure. That I have a responsibility to do my own part of the work, that all of us are on the journey. It's not just white, it's not just Black, it's all of us. And so my responsibility to do the work, between that and the fact that my daughter is the leader of a Black Lives Matter movement, all of a sudden made me go, oh, so working on this piece has pushed me to think about my responsibility to the whole bigger picture more. And then to look at my two boys is something that I gained from this piece, to look at my two Black boys and look at them as a whole being, not just what I need them to be, what I want them to be, but that they are full, complicated individuals, even when as mother, son, I don't understand their response, or as teenagers, I don't understand there's a fullness to them. And so watching these two young men, both as characters and actors, I am reminded and will take away, everybody, really, not just young Black men, but everybody have their own stories, and you're full of complicated things, and that should be honored for every human being.
Oh,
I know that sounded like a postcard, but it really is true, what I took away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. I have to say, I'm such a dork. When does this open? Jess Chase.
So it will be available to stream starting Thursday, October 8th. And then, yeah, Friday, October 9th is kind of our opening celebration talkback.
Opening celebration and then the talk back, which will
Yeah.
be recorded if you can't make it. Okay. Grateful to all of you. We adore all of you. Artists, I'll see you in rehearsal. Everybody else, take good care. Stay healthy. We
Peace.
miss you. We'll see you soon. Bye.